Do you ever bolt awake at midnight in a cold sweat and wonder what happened to the announced Shin Megami Tensei Fire Emblem crossover? Do you have sudden realizations that Cyberpunk 2077 and Scalebound are things that exist? Do you even remember that we're getting a new Crackdown, a new Gears of War, and a new Phantom Dust? Here are some of the games that have fallen out of the spotlight but not out of our hearts. Games that are confirmed to be in development but that have been silent for a while. 2 years ago, Nintendo dropped a bombshell during its first video presentation of the year. Atlus and Fire Emblem developer Intelligent Systems were teaming up for a Shin Megami Tensei Fire Emblem crossover. The game would feature characters from both series, the trailer showing characters from the franchise's first games all the way up to recent ones, including Shin Megami Tensei 4 and Fire Emblem Awakening. Fans' appetites were whet, and that was it. We've heard nothing from either company on the game since, besides small reassurances that yes, it is still in development. Rumors began circulating on 4chan late last year that the game had been canceled due to conflicting viewpoints among the teams. Recently, Atlus told GameSpot that it couldn't comment on the project's status. Here's to hoping this drool-worthy collaboration won't go the way of The Last Guardian. At Gamescom last year, Sony showed cryptic footage of people screaming, then encouraged PlayStation 4 owners to go download something called PT. Less than a day later, one lucky user beat the complicated and seemingly random mini-horror title to discover a trailer. A trailer for a new Silent Hill game. Made by Kojima Productions with input from famed film director Guillermo del Toro and starring Norman Reedus. Think about that for a second. A new Silent Hill game made by Kojima and del Toro starring Daryl from The Walking Dead. It's the perfect confection of visionaries to make a poop-your-pants survival horror game. But since that trailer and its playable teaser, we've heard nothing. Just the endless shrieks of those replaying PT to mine its secrets. Silent Hills, as the game is called, has no release date and no information other than it exists. And when contacted for comment, Konami told us that there's nothing new to share right now. We're not expecting to see this one anytime soon. We all knew more Kingdom Hearts was coming when the 7th sequel didn't wrap up the storyline. Officially announced at E3 2013, Kingdom Hearts 3 will theoretically wrap up the current storyline, although Square Enix says this won't be the last game in the franchise. Technically, we've known about the game since 2010, when then-director Tetsuya Nomura acknowledged that the game was coming in an interview published in a guidebook. The game is coming to PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, making it the first Kingdom Hearts on a Microsoft console. Right after E3 2013, however, Nomura admitted that maybe Kingdom Hearts 3 had been announced too early. Why? Because it's way too early in development. There's no way we'll see it soon, right? Not in 2015 anyway, based on how little we've seen so far. But what we have seen is interesting. Attacks based on Disney theme park attractions, throw in some worlds based on Pixar, Marvel, and Star Wars properties, and I'm sold. Last fall, Square Enix announced that Nomura had stepped away from Kingdom Hearts 3 to work full-time on Final Fantasy XV, another mystical unicorn in Square's development bag. With a new director focused on the project, it's looking a little more likely we'll get it sooner than later. If sooner comes after later, that is. And according to co-director Tai Yasue, we'll hear more about Kingdom Hearts 3, including just what's up with those attractions and transforming Keyblades this year. Phantom Dust. Phantom Dust. 10 years later, we're getting a Phantom Dust reboot. According to Microsoft, who announced the game as an Xbox One exclusive at E3 2014, we're getting an update on the classic with new gameplay and graphics. Last fall, Phil Spencer said we'd likely hear more about the game this year, probably at E3. That's literally all we know, but guys, we're getting another Phantom Dust. Phantom Dust. Microsoft's E3 2014 press conference was a blowout of announcements. In addition to Phantom Dust, the company announced a new Crackdown was in development with original director Dave Jones at the head. The new Crackdown is aiming to blend its single-player campaign with co-op multiplayer, making it a seamless experience. Now, we haven't seen any art or design work since that E3 trailer, so it's hard to tell where exactly this game is in development. Like Phantom Dust, Phil Spencer said it's safe to say we'll hear more about Crackdown this year. But as for a release date, we're not betting on adding these to our libraries in 2015. This game, oh man. The third big surprise to come from that fateful Microsoft E3 press conference was Scalebound. Scalebound is in development with Platinum Games, the studio behind Bayonetta, which means we're going to get something good. Scalebound is sort of reminiscent of Panzer Dragoon, but also not. Players will run up against formidable creatures and tether their fate to a dragon whose scales you can borrow for armor. Scalebound looks incredibly ambitious, and again, there has been no new game information since the announcement. However, recently, Microsoft Studios creative director Ken Lobb said that we'd be able to play Scalebound later this year. Excite! We're getting a new Gears of War. We know this because 1 year later, in January 2014, Microsoft announced that it had acquired the rights to the Gears of War IP, and developer Black Tusk Studios was currently chugging away at a new one. Microsoft also snagged one Rod Ferguson, the producer on all previous Gears of War games, to head the endeavor. Our new Gears won't be a reboot and will launch only for Xbox One, one of those niggling side effects of being a Microsoft exclusive. We've reached out to Microsoft to ask what's up with Phantom Dust, Crackdown, Scalebound, and Gears of War, but the company offered no new information at this time. Everyone relax. We're thinking E3 will be the sweet spot for new info on these games. We've seen next to nothing from this Bandai Namco Capcom crossover and heard even less. As the second crossover between the companies, the first being Street Fighter Cross Tekken, Tekken Cross Street Fighter will use Tekken's 3D fighting style. At the time the title was announced for PlayStation 3 and Xbox One, way back in the heyday of the previous console generation. As of spring 2012, Tekken Cross Street Fighter was 10% complete, according to Tekken producer Katsuhiro Harada. And at San Diego Comic-Con last year, Harada promised the game hadn't been canceled. It was just taking some more time to cook. He told fans, "Please relax." But how can we relax when Street Fighter Cross Tekken was awesome and we still managed to get it in a bunch of Street Fighter 4 updates since the announcement? Capcom said they want to finish Tekken 7 and all its planned updates before they can talk Tekken Cross Street Fighter, but goodness knows how long that is going to take. Whimsical little number Rhyme was announced during Gamescom 2013, doing a flurry of indie game reveals at Sony's press conference. Rhyme is an adventure game influenced by Hayao Miyazaki movies, Shadow of the Colossus, and Ico, which means it immediately captured the imagination of those watching that first trailer. The game is about a boy trying to escape an island in a curse, and that's really sweet, but it's all developer TequilaWorks has shared. Rhymes will be a PlayStation 4 exclusive, and according to TequilaWorks, is set to release sometime in 2015. Whatever you do, don't call it Mirror's Edge 2. The new Mirror's Edge will be a prequel, not a sequel, to the 2008 original and tell the origin story of protagonist Faith. The game was rumored to be in development for years until EA announced DICE was working on it at E3 2013. The game will focus on up-close and personal first-person combat, and it looks like we'll be running our little hearts out across rooftops again. But after being a no-show at E3 2014, we begin to wonder just how close we were to getting the actual game. Sure enough, directly following EA's Mirror's Edge Less press conference, DICE posted a note to the game's official website, declaring the title had a long way to go. But when we asked EA what was up with the game, they just said, "Rocking and rolling, keep the faith." If you're into games, Cliff Bleszinski is practically a household name. After leaving Epic Games in 2012, after 20 years of service, Bleszinski skipped off into the sunset of retirement. His vacation from games was short-lived, and in summer 2014, it was revealed that he was working on a new game called Blue Streak at his newly founded studio, Boss Key Productions. Blue Streak will be a free-to-play, sci-fi-themed arena shooter, and will be published by mega company Nexon for PC. Bleszinski recently told GameSpot that the studio is playing the game on a daily basis now and closing in on a final name for the title. The game will feature multiple modes, arenas, attacks, and abilities, and the team is now experimenting with a few different styles of movement. It'll be interesting to see where Cliffy B goes after Jazz Jackrabbit and Gears of War, and we've been anxiously awaiting news on this title. CD Projekt Red announced Cyberpunk 2077 in May 2012. Based on the Cyberpunk tabletop role-playing games by Mike Pondsmith, Cyberpunk 2077 would be a mature role-playing game geared towards a more adult audience. In case that wasn't evident by the cyborg lady doing the splits in her skivvies in the only promotional materials. Originally announced as Cyberpunk, the game was given its 2077 tag later that year, with a trailer arriving a few months later, and suggestions that it would be a PlayStation 4 and Xbox One game. But in March 2014, CD Projekt Red announced the highly anticipated The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt would be delayed, from fall of that year to early 2015. And then again, just recently, the studio delayed The Witcher to May. At the time of the first delay, Cyberpunk 2077's development was said to not be affected, but this time, we heard nothing. When asked what was up, CD Projekt Red told GameSpot that it had nothing to say about Cyberpunk 2077, and would remain mum until The Witcher 3's release. The Sony Online Entertainment Live Expo in 2013 brought with it the announcement of EverQuest Next, EverQuest. Technically, we knew about the game in 2009 when Sony hinted that we were definitely getting more EverQuest after EverQuest 2. Then the company said we weren't only getting a new EverQuest, but EverQuest Next Landmark, a creation-focused standalone game thing that would allow users to craft bits and pieces for the world. Landmark went into alpha in January 2014, into beta in March, and that is where it has remained. EverQuest Next and Next Landmark will come to PC and likely PS4, but when is still up in the air. Recently, SOE told GameSpot they are preparing for Landmark's open beta phase, which will launch realistically soon, and will then move into full-time work on EverQuest Next main content. Here's to hoping we see more of these games in 2015 and, dare I say, some final releases.